Hi, I'm Robert Fish. This is another video I'm making on storytelling, and this one is about nonverbal communication. We're going to cover 5 elements of nonverbal communication: eye interaction, gestures, movement, stance, and facial expression. And I think a fun way to present these is not to lecture you about them, but to present them through telling you a story. The story I want to tell is Hansel and Gretel. It's a fairy tale that's well known by most people, and I like it. I think it's a great story. So here's how we begin. Once upon a time. All fairy tales pretty much begin that. And all stories, whether they have that line or not, have an opening. Whatever the first sentence is that you tell as the story, you are now the storyteller. You're you. You're always you. But you are you, and you have taken on the mantle of the narrator, the creator of the world of story. So, one of the things I always do, whenever I say the first line of a story, I open with a gesture. It makes so much more difference than not. Once upon a time. Once upon a time. Once upon a time. I didn't change my voice, but the visual picture changes. I think when you open a story with a gesture, there is the promise of energy, enthusiasm, drama, which is what all stories rest on. So here's our story then. This is the opening scene. Once upon a time, there was a poor woodcutter who lived in a small house next to a huge forest. Lived there with his wife, who was the stepmother to his 2 children, Hansel and Gretel. All right, there's the opening scene. Now, as I describe it, let me bring in here my low-tech visual aid, because I want to help show where the story moves in terms of conflict and structure as we go along. So this first scene right here, is the establishing scene. So it's sort of mid-range. Nothing really bad's going on, nothing particularly good, but it's right here. Now what I did when in this opening scene, as I said, I open with a gesture. A poor woodcutter who lived in a small home. So with my gesture, I showed you that the home is rather small. So it's not like this, it's like this. And then I said, lived next door to a great forest. I did a sweeping gesture with my hand, and that demonstrates the size, the scope of this forest, the enormity of it, which is important because it plays an important role in a later scene, as you will see. So it's something of an establishing shot. So through eye contact and gesture and movement with my torso, I suggest and show you the opening of the story. Now at this point, things get bad. We have to bring in conflict and things that put poor Hansel and Gretel in a bit of danger. So one evening, the mother and father are sitting by the table talking. And the problem is they have no food. They can't feed their family. So this is what the mother says. Here's where the scene opens. Now, my dear, you know I love the children. I've always loved them. But we have a problem. We don't have enough food. I have an idea. How about this? We take the children out into the forest and we leave them there to fend for themselves. And then we would have enough food for for us to live on. Don't you think this would be a good idea? And the husband, I could not do this to my children. I could not abandon them in the forest. So there's that opening scene. What I've done, the important thing here is to create and distinguish the characters who are speaking. So the stepmother, it's character placement is what it's called. The stepmother is always speaking here to the father. The father would always be speaking here to the stepmother. So no matter how long the dialogue goes on in this scene, the placement is always the same. It helps the audience know who is speaking because they can see it with the eye contact, the placement. But in addition, I used facial expression, changes in voice, and gestures that I thought fit this stepmother. I sort of modeled her on some of the women, evil stepmothers in some of the Walt Disney movies. And then the father, a hardworking man, but he has this teeny little flaw, you see. He doesn't have the courage of his own convictions. So he finally allows his wife to talk him into this terrible idea of abandoning their children in the forest. But so it goes, because now Hansel and Gretel are at risk. But things are going to get worse. So in this next scene, they do. The parents take them out far deep into the woods and leave them there. And now the children are lost. They've been there all night, and now they're there the next day, wandering, lost. The trees are so thick in this area of the forest that sunlight can't even penetrate. It's as though it's a perpetual twilight. And the children are so afraid. Why, they might starve to death. If it's a cold night, they might freeze to death. Or they might even be eaten by wild animals. So in this scene, what I wanted to do was for you to feel some of the apprehension and fear that the children felt. I did that by describing the forest. The canopy is so thick the sun couldn't come through, and a gesture like this. And then when I talked about how they could freeze to death, starve to death, be eaten, I put each one of those in a different place. Starve to death, freeze to death, be eaten. And with facial expression and gesture and movement, I wanted to suggest to you, oh, this is dangerous. This could be very, very bad. So we're moving in the story from neutral down to things are bad. Oh, now things are getting worse. But wait, there's hope on the horizon. Here's the next scene. Hansel and Gretel came out of the forest into a small meadow. And in the midst of the meadow was a little cottage. Their first reaction was, we're saved. There's an adult here. We won't die in the woods. But then they looked more closely. What an odd-looking house. Why, it looked like it was made of cake. They went up to it, and they broke off a piece and ate it. It was gingerbread. Not only are they saved, they've got dessert to eat. While they're eating, the door opens and a little old lady comes out. Oh, she says, oh, my darlings, it's so good to see you. Come into my house. Let me take care of you. So there's that scene. Now, in that, I wanted you to see the house as Hansel and Gretel saw it. So they come into the clearing, the meadow, gesture, small cottage. They're saved. And then, but wait, they look. So it's different. It's cake. Here I'm using gesture again to show you that suggesting the eating. They're saved, they're happy, facial expressions, open gestures. The little old lady comes out. Now I shift. So here she is holding her cane, and she's got poor posture. She's an old woman, so she's bent over, squinty-eyed because she needs to have poor eyesight, and she speaks in a high, squeaky voice. And I screw up her face a little. But she's friendly. She's smiling. Oh, good, come in. It's good to see you. There's the old lady. So we establish character and mood and emotion, again, through gesture, stance, posture. Movements don't have to be big. They can just be a shifting of the weight from one leg to another. And we're creating the energy of the story. So things went from neutral to bad to worse to this little old lady is going to save us. Ha ha ha, so they think. But in the next scene, things go bad again because the old lady shows her true colors. Here's how the next scene goes. The next morning, the old lady grabbed Hansel, dragged him to the backyard, and threw him into a cage and locked the door. For she wasn't just an old lady. She was a witch. And her intention was to kill and cook and eat both Hansel and Gretel. Oh, she was an evil one, all right. So in that scene, what I wanted to show was the witchiness, if you will, of this woman. So she reaches out, here's the gesture, grabbing him, shows you, while I'm telling you, I'm showing you at the same time, grabs him by the arm, takes him out to the backyard. Now, the backyard could be 30 feet away, but I'm not going to go running all over the stage because I don't need to. Here's that thing where it could be just a shift of weight. Weight's on the right foot, grab him, yank him, pull him, and I just put my weight forward on the left foot, and now he's in the backyard and locked into a cage. Hands something like this. Now, narrator turns to the audience and now is describing who she truly is, the witch. Facial expression, concern in the voice. The narrator shows the concern, the thrill of danger that the children are feeling some of in his expression of, oh, cook, eat. And she was a very wicked witch. So that establishes how things are getting worse. But they're not bad enough yet. So one more brings us, we have to get to the crisis of the story. And the crisis is when all hope is gone. This is it. The ship, the boat is going over the waterfalls. The bomb is going to explode. There's nothing that can be done. And here's how this scene goes. So the witch knew it was time to cook and eat the children. So first, she started a fire under this huge pot of water to get it to boiling. And she started a fire under the oven to get it hot. Her plan was she was going to cook Hansel in the pot of boiling water, and she was going to roast Gretel in the oven. After a while, she said to Gretel, "Get in that oven there, my dear. Get in there and tell me if it's hot enough to bake the bread." Yes. Now, this is the crucial moment. Because if Gretel doesn't do something, that's it. It's going to be a short story. It'll be the witch cooked them and ate them. End of story. But Gretel has an idea. It's dangerous, but it's worth trying. And this is the moment where she has the idea and decides to put it into action. So the witch has said, climb into the oven and see if it's hot enough. She pretends she doesn't understand. And she says to the witch, I don't understand what you mean. Show me what you want. So again, now character placement. The witch spoke to Gretel in this direction. And now Gretel speaks to her in this direction. And for as long as that conversation, that dialogue might go on, the character placement would always be the same. When I was Gretel, I was pulling back a little bit. It says she's trying to protect herself with her gestures, at the same time pretending, I don't understand. You'll have to show me, kind of thing with face and voice. Now back to the witch.
Ah, you silly goose. All right, I'll show you what to do. This is how you do it.
And the witch went up to the oven and poked her head and shoulders into it. So, important part. So again, we have the witch with all the characterization, and then her moving forward to put her head and shoulders into the oven, right out into the audience, so that they feel more involvement than they would if it were putting her head over here, right out to the audience. So this is the moment. This is the moment. It can be rushed over in the story the way it is in the books, but to realize this is the entire story hinges on this moment. Can Gretel push the witch into the oven and be successful at it? She's beside herself with fear. Is she strong enough to push an adult into the oven? She is, after all, a little girl. What if it doesn't work? What if the witch reaches behind her and drags her in after her? What if? A lot could go wrong. She, of course, makes the decision to push the witch in. And I think what that motivating moment is, she's not doing it for herself. She is doing it to save the life of her brother. And in that moment of being willing to sacrifice for someone else, we don't draw this out too much, but I come back like this. And then, and the big push, and on it. And Gretel pushed the witch into the oven and slammed the door and locked it. That way we know the witch can't climb out. So a lot of energy here. I was really putting a lot into the push for you to understand this is the moment. This is the moment of crisis. And the girl comes through. Yes, she's able to push the witch in, slam the door, and lock it. A little pause there, because now you see it had gone. Here was the witch, and now the witch is going to eat them, and boom, because of Gretel's bravery. Oh, she was a brave little girl. The day is saved. Hansel and Gretel are free. They find their way back home. Their father is overjoyed to see them. Oh, and coincidentally, the stepmother died while in their absence. That works out nicely. And the three of them sat down and had a wonderful meal together. The end. So this is just a quick view of the structure of the story. The main thing I wanted to show you, demonstrate in this video, was the use of nonverbal communication. How you can use eye interaction, gesture, movement, stance, and facial expression to create characterization, but more than that, to create the mood, the energy, the different emotions and conflicts that go on in a story. This is a big part in how you bring a story to life. The other part that you have to bring to it is allowing yourself to be in the story, to take on the energy, the conflict, the different emotional states, the heartbreak, and the good news at the end, if it's a good news story. This is yours to do. This is where you become the teller of the story. Enjoy it, love it, and live in it. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye.